Chapter 1271. But according to Song Weizong, those families were also cultivator families. He had thought that the number of cultivators in the inner martial arts world was very small, but now it seemed that the scale was quite large. Yes, because the Song family and the Hong family have a relatively deep foundation and a relatively large number of people, the other small families elected us as leaders to deal with some routine affairs. However, opening the world of immortal cultivation is of great importance, and the sacrificial method really needs everyone's consent before it can be taken out. Our two families dare not make decisions in private. Please forgive us, little friend Ajian. Song Weizong did not even dare to breathe as he explained with a bitter face. Okay then, let's do as you say. Xiaochen did not force him this time. Instead, he nodded and said faintly, if you have made a decision, come and tell me immediately so that I can prepare in advance. After all, Xiaochen did not have any deep hatred with the immortal cultivation sections. They were all cultivators, so there was no need to push them too far and make enemies for themselves. Anyway, it was not the time for the sacrificial ceremony yet. A few more days was fine. Thank you, little friend Ajian. I'm going to call the other families right now. As soon as there is news, come and inform me immediately. Song Weizong's worried heart finally fell to the ground at this moment. He hurriedly cupped his hands in gratitude, then wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, took out his mobile phone, and left the conference room in a hurry. Xiaochen shook his head when he saw Song Weizong's flustered look. He found it a little funny. The effect of his beating just now was pretty good. These people looked at him as if they were looking at a scourge or ferocious beast. Fortunately, the sacrificial ceremony had not started yet, so Xiaochen was not so eager to know the process. Now that everything was under his control, there was no need to make enemies for no reason. Therefore, Xiaochen let Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil go and interrogate them separately, which could be regarded as a buffer period for them. While Song Weizong left in a hurry, West Mountain Mad Devil finally found a secluded place in a corner of Open Heaven Gate and stood still. West Mountain Mad Devil looked around warily, making sure that no one was eavesdropping around, then picked up his mobile phone and immediately dialed a phone number on the screen, waiting anxiously for the other party to answer. Mad Demon, what did Awakening Heaven Gate say? Mad Demon Shishan waited for a long time before the phone was connected. Then, a man's cold voice came. It sounded as stiff and emotionless as a dead man's. Reporting to Sect Master, Situ Chitian is no longer the Sect Master of Awakening Heaven Sect. He has passed the position of Sect Master to a little girl named Xing Gongzi. West Mountain Mad Demon did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly reported. Xing Gongzi. Xing Gongzi. Shishan Giant Yak seemed to be slightly surprised, but its voice did not waver. It was still very rigid. It repeated the name several times, as if trying to remember if it had heard of this person before. Most importantly, when I came here this time, I found out that there was a guy named Ajian by the girl's side. He's very powerful. I wanted to test him just now. Mad Devil Shishan told him everything about how he was beaten up. Ken? Where did this person come from? Shishan Giant Yak was really a little surprised this time. After all, the strength of West Mountain Mad Demon was already outstanding in the martial arts world. Who else could beat him to the point that he could not fight back except for those old ghosts of the Immortal Cultivation Sect? Shishan Giant Yak did not care too much about the change of the Sect Master of Awakening Heaven Gate. If someone could defeat West Mountain Mad Demon, he would only frown a little. However, when the two things were combined together, Shishan Giant Yak had to pay attention to it. Could it be that in addition to the Ghost Cultivation Sect and the Immortal Cultivation Sect, there was a higher-level sect in the martial arts world? Could it be that Awakening Heaven Gate had taken refuge in that sect, so this time they were specially called to demonstrate? Xing Gongzi. Jian. Shishan Giant Yak repeated these two names several times. He kept searching the memory in his mind, but found that he had no impression of these two people at all. Since he could not remember for a while, Shishan Giant Yak simply put this matter aside and asked, speaking of which, didn't Awakening Heaven Gate claim to have found another way to enter the world of immortal cultivation, so they called you over? Did you find out what method it was? Is Gong Sun Yen, that old thing, fooling us? Sect Master, you are right. Gong Sun Yen is indeed fooling us. Shishan Mad Demon suddenly slapped his thigh and shouted angrily. What? Shishan Giant Yak's tone suddenly rose. He was obviously a little angry. He said fiercely, when I received the news, I felt that things were a little strange. That old guy never gets up early without benefits. Why did he come to us to share it? What is going on? Tell me in detail. Chi Tian Men had indeed discovered a teleportation formation leading to the world of cultivators, but it had been destroyed by Situ Chitian due to a freak accident. Although he himself was transmitted to the world of immortal cultivation with the help of that array, it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. Shishan Mad Demon shook his head helplessly and honestly repeated what Xiao Chen had just said. How could it be so coincidental? Situ Chitian is really a piece of trash. Shishan Mad Demon couldn't help but curse angrily. After thinking about it, he felt that something was wrong and asked, that's not right. Since this method has failed, why did he deliberately call you over? Just to let you know about this tragic thing? Or to tell them that the sect master has been changed? No, Awakening Heaven Gate wants to cooperate with our Ghost Cultivation sect and the Immortal Cultivation sect to enter the world of immortal cultivation using our method. Shishan Mad Demon replied. F***CK. Shishan Mad Demon originally wanted to curse, but considering his identity and status, he forcibly held back and said in a gloomy tone, Awakening Heaven Gate really has a good plan. Did you agree to them? Not yet. Shishan Mad Demon quickly denied, but Song Weizong went out and made a phone call. After he came back, he agreed to cooperate, so I slipped out and called you. Hearing this, Shishan Mad Demon's mood became very depressed. Originally, the number of women with spiritual chi that the Ghost Cultivation sect had collected was not enough. If they wanted to forcibly start the sacrifice, it would inevitably be a little difficult. Shishan Mad Demon still hoped to use the method provided by Awakening Heaven Gate to directly enter the world of immortal cultivation without the sacrifice. He did not expect such an unforeseen event to happen. Instead, Awakening Heaven Gate wanted to share a piece of the cake with them. Chapter 1272. Sect Leader, why don't we ignore them? Why don't we send people to look for other women with spiritual chi? Shishan Mad Demon waited for a long time and didn't see his leader speak, so he suggested, didn't we sense 2 of them near the Jia family of the inner martial arts world? I'll send someone to catch them. Maybe we can get enough people in this way. In fact, the women with spiritual chi that the Ghost Cultivation sect sensed near the Jia family were Ling, and Ling Qinxue. However, they didn't dare to catch them at that time. The Ghost Cultivation sect was originally a sect that couldn't be seen in the light. They were the type of people who were hated by everyone. Although they were not afraid to fight against the Jia family alone, if the Jia family became angry and joined forces with other sects and families to fight against the Ghost Cultivation sect, then this matter would be troublesome. Absolutely not. Shishan Giant Bull immediately rejected this idea and said in a deep voice, now, Chi Tian sect, the leader of the demon sect in the internal martial arts world, is eyeing us covetously, waiting for the fishermen to profit from the fight. It is really unwise to offend the Jia family, one of the 3 big families. You must not act rashly. This. Okay. I didn't think it through. Shishan Mad Demon responded dejectedly. Shishan Mad Demon pondered for a moment, and suddenly a sinister idea flashed in his mind. He immediately ordered coldly, how about this? Since Jian wants us to cooperate, and the Immortal Cultivation sect has agreed, why don't we beat them at their own game? Next, you go and promise Jian that we can cooperate with them, and then. Shishan Mad Demon laughed strangely as he revealed the sinister plan that he had just come up with. As expected of the leader of Shishan Mad Demon. After listening to the plan, Shishan Mad Demon repeatedly praised, if this plan succeeds smoothly, then our Ghost Cultivation sect will slaughter the Immortal Cultivation sect sooner or later. At that time, we can take all the other sects and families under our command, and we no longer have to hide in the inner martial arts world. At this point, the mad demon of the Shishan Mountain could not help but chuckle. He looked very proud of himself. It was as if he could already see the people of the immortal cultivation sect being trampled under his feet and the scene of the ghost cultivation sect dominating the martial arts world. Don't think about this for now. Hurry up and get things done. I'll ask someone to send those girls over later. Shishan Giant Ox had regained his composure, and his voice became as stiff and rigid as before. All right. I'll wait for your news, sect leader. West Mountain Mad Demon quickly stopped laughing, hung up the phone, and ran back to the conference room. After returning to the conference room, Mad Demon of Shishan found that Song Weizong was no longer there. However, the few people from Awakening Heaven sect were still there. Without thinking too much, he immediately found Xiao Chen with a smile and expressed that the Ghost Cultivation sect was willing to cooperate with Awakening Heaven sect. During the cooperation period, they could provide all kinds of cultivation resources that little friend Xiao Chen and the others from Awakening Heaven sect needed to express their sincerity. After listening, Xiao Chen nodded slightly, indicating that he already knew, and sent Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain away. Originally, Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain thought that Xiao Chen would be flattered by his enthusiasm, but it turned out that he was splashed with a basin of cold water. Although he was dissatisfied, he did not dare to show it. He was afraid that Xiao Chen would beat him up again if he was unhappy. So, he had to leave the conference room obediently. Looking at the back of Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain, Xiao Chen's expression was a little solemn. He was not too interested in the so-called cultivation resources. On the contrary, the ghost cultivation sect was hesitant before, but they agreed so readily. Xiao Chen keenly guessed that there should be some conspiracy behind this. If it was just the ghost cultivation sect's conspiracy, Xiao Chen would not be too concerned. He estimated that the other party only had the leader of Giant Ox who was a little more powerful. However, coupled with the slightly vague attitude of the immortal cultivation sect just now, it made Xiao Chen a little uneasy. If the ghost cultivation sect and the immortal cultivation sect both objected to awakened sect's continued participation in the sacrificial ceremony and threatened not to hand over the sacrificial ceremony method, then it would be difficult for him to fight against the two sects at the same time. Xiao Chen knocked on the table rhythmically as he pondered with a frown. If he wanted to find a few helpers, it would be a little difficult. Apart from the Jia family and Awakening Heaven sect, which Xiao Chen could deploy, the other sects and families in the martial arts world did not have any relations with him. Moreover, even if they were willing to help him, he would not need them at all. This was because the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect were all cultivators. Even if he mobilized all the experts of the Jia family and awakened sect, they might not have the strength to compete with the other party. On the contrary, they might be completely annihilated. Xiao Chen was not willing to risk the lives of other innocent people. He had to think of another way. After instructing Gong Sun Yen to properly arrange the food and lodging for Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil, Xiao Chen bade farewell to Miss Xing and then stood up to leave the conference room. As he walked, he pondered over a more suitable method. Back in his room, Xiao Chen sat at the table with a sullen face. He had been thinking for a long time but could not think of a suitable idea. Did he really have to hope that the immortal cultivation sect would obediently hand over the sacrificial ceremony method? Right now, Qing Menjing, Tian Wangshou and the rest were temporarily staying in Awakening Heaven sect. If he were to place his hopes on an unpredictable sect, it was very likely that not only would he suffer a calamity, but his woman would also be implicated. Leaning against the back of the chair, Xiao Chen's dignified gaze inadvertently fell on the table. Other than his luggage, there were also the fragments of the flying sword that he had put away earlier. Staring at the fragments, Xiao Chen suddenly thought of the time when he was dealing with Situ Qitian. At that time, the flying sword techniques that he had used had scared Situ Qitian, whose strength was higher than his. If this flying sword was intact, he might be able to rely on those techniques to kill some evil cultivators who were scheming against him. This way, he could also intimidate the people from the immortal cultivation sect, so that they would not dare to do anything. Elder Heaven Ancestor, look at this flying sword. It has already been broken into pieces. Can you let the fire of the underworld reforge it and restore it to its original appearance? Shao Chen arranged the fragments of the flying sword and put them back together. Looking at the cracks on the body of the sword, he asked helplessly but still had a glimmer of hope. I think it will be very difficult. After being struck by the lightning tribulation, this flying sword has already lost its spirituality. Even if it is reforged, it will not be able to fly like before. Elder Heaven Ancestor shook his head and mercilessly pierced through Shao Chen's hope. Chapter 1273. Sigh, if I could recover, I would at least have a higher chance of success. Now. Shao Chen sighed and frowned even more. Compared to this matter, I think there's another problem that you need to consider now. Before Shao Chen could finish speaking, the Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly said in a serious tone. What's wrong? What happened? Shao Chen was slightly stunned. There was something wrong with the tone of the Elder Heaven Ancestor. You've been busy these few days, so I haven't found a chance to tell you. I guess you haven't realized it either. Ever since you ordered in Xiaoma to merge with the flames of the underworld and successfully tricked by Zhe, and Xiaoma's primordial spirit has been dissipating. I guess he'll disappear completely after a while. The Elder Heaven Ancestor explained with difficulty. What? How could this be? Shao Chen was shocked. He had been busy dealing with the matters of the immortal cultivation world and had been busy with external affairs. He did not pay much attention to the condition of the two primordial spirits in his body. When he heard the Elder Heaven Ancestor's words, he was shocked. Shao Chen immediately checked in Xiaoma's primordial spirit and found that it was indeed as the Elder Heaven Ancestor had said. The primordial spirit was indeed fading. Even if he wanted to transfer his primordial spirit to treat him, it would be useless. Don't waste your primordial spirit. It's useless. It's precisely because the attribute of the flames of the underworld's primordial spirit restrains the attribute of Xiaoma's primordial spirit that the injury is irreversible. The Elder Heaven Ancestor stopped Shao Chen's futile efforts and explained slowly, if you hadn't asked them to merge to deal with the spiritual beast, and Xiaoma's primordial spirit wouldn't have been burned. Now, even using primordial spirit won't be able to help him recover. I'm sorry, Xiaoma. I didn't expect that you wouldn't even be able to protect your primordial spirit in order to save me. You're about to turn into ashes. Shao Chen stared at Xiaoma's dim primordial spirit and muttered, if I had known this would happen, I would have thought of another way to deal with Bai Zhe. Shao Chen was feeling very guilty at this moment. He did not realize that the problem would be so serious. Although he had captured Bai Zhe as a mount, he had paid the price of Xiaoma's primordial spirit. The price was too high. It's all right. As long as Master is fine, it's fine. And Little Demon said weakly, anyway, I've already lived for so many years. I'm content. With every sentence Xiaoma spoke, his primordial spirit dimmed a little. It was obvious that he could not hold on for much longer. All right, don't say anything. Shao Chen hurriedly stopped Xiaoma from answering, which consumed his primordial spirit. He then asked, Elder Heaven Ancestor, you're so knowledgeable. Is there no way for Xiaoma to recover? Although Xiaoma's original purpose of occupying Shao Chen's body was to allow him to be reborn, Shao Chen no longer blamed him. Instead, he hoped that he could be saved. After all, Xiaoma had been with him for so long. He was diligent and hardworking. He had already made up for his mistakes. Moreover, the reason why he was injured this time was to save Shao Chen's life. There is a way, but it's very troublesome. Elder Heaven Ancestor pondered for a while, then sighed and said, you must first find a suitable container to put Xiaoma's primordial spirit in. Then, take him to a place with sufficient demonic qi so that he can absorb enough demonic qi to recover. Where am I supposed to find a container in such a short period of time? Even if I find one, I don't have a suitable place for Xiaoma to absorb demonic qi. Shao Chen smiled bitterly. He suddenly thought of something and quickly asked, Elder Heaven Ancestor, I remember you once said that my primordial qi can be transformed into anything in the world, right? Can't I use my primordial qi to inject it into him? Not yet. Elder Heaven Ancestor rejected Xiao Chen's suggestion and explained, because Xiaoma's primordial spirit relies on demonic qi to survive. Although primordial qi can also be transformed for his use, his primordial spirit is so weak. There's no way for him to absorb your mutated primordial qi. It will only make him dissipate faster. Do I have to break into the lair of the ghost cultivation sect? There is enough demonic qi there, but I'm afraid that Xiaoma will die before I get there. Xiao Chen said with a bitter face. In fact, Xiao Chen had another worry. If he went to the lair of the ghost cultivation sect and the two sides got into a fight, it would be hard to say if he could escape unscathed, let alone help Xiaoma recover his demonic qi. Right. I have another way. Elder Heaven Ancestor was silent for a while, then suddenly shouted. Oh my God, Elder Heaven Ancestor, you scared me. Xiao Chen suddenly shivered and said angrily, if you have a way, say it quickly. What's with all the fuss? Xiao Chen was really speechless at Elder Heaven Ancestor. At this time, this old urchin still had the time to keep him in suspense. Didn't I just think of it? Elder Heaven Ancestor smiled a little awkwardly and quickly described, first, use your primordial qi to make a barrier, just like what you did in the Venerable Realm. Make it 100 times smaller, then release Xiaoma's primordial spirit from your body and put it in the barrier to protect it. Put it in the barrier? What's the use of that? Xiao Chen asked doubtfully, can my barrier be a container for his primordial spirit? Of course not. Do you think your barrier is so omnipotent? Elder Heaven Ancestor first refuted Xiao Chen mercilessly, then explained with a little excitement, after you release Xiaoma's primordial spirit, fuse it into the flying sword. When your flying sword has a primordial spirit, it can be reforged by the fire of the underworld. Are you serious? Can this work? Xiao Chen listened to Elder Heaven Ancestor's joking idea and asked suspiciously. Of course it can. If you don't believe me, who else can you believe? The more Elder Heaven Ancestor said, the happier he became. He continued with a smile, when you're done, not only can you protect Xiaoma, but you can also use the flying sword. Xiao Chen frowned and thought for a long time. He found that apart from this method, he really couldn't think of any other solution, so he had no choice but to accept Elder Heaven Ancestor's suggestion. However, before building the barrier, Xiao Chen said worriedly, I say, Elder Heaven Ancestor. In this way, although Xiaoma's primordial spirit is saved, he still can't absorb the evil qi. Should I find a time to go to the ghost cultivation sect's territory? I find that you're really stupid and naive. Elder Heaven Ancestor lectured, won't the ghost cultivation sect send people over in a few days? At that time, those people will definitely be escorted by a lot of evil cultivators. As long as you kill a few of them with the flying sword, won't Xiaoma's primordial spirit be able to absorb the evil qi? Chapter 1274. Originally, Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao had no intention of coming to Awakening Heaven sect. When Hong Zhu and the others brought the injured Song Qingshu and third young master Hong back to the Hong family, they had told them that they had met Xiao Chen in the Venerable Realm. He looked fine and was not kidnapped by anyone, nor did he seem to be injured. What the F***ck? How the F***ck is this possible? Xiao Chen could naturally hear that the Elder Heaven Ancestor was scolding him, but he didn't care too much because this was really a good idea. Although Song Qingshu didn't have a particularly good impression of the demonic cultivator, in any case, the two sides would be considered to have a cooperative relationship in the future. Since he was in the territory of Awakening Heaven sect, he couldn't treat them lightly. Little Miss Xing and Song Qingshu didn't have much friendship before, and now that the ghost cultivation sect hadn't arrived yet, she didn't plan to meet second young master Song so soon. Unexpectedly, the other party took the initiative to greet her. Could it be that there was a problem with their sacrifice? Moss. Master. Thank you so much. I didn't expect you. And Xiaoma was very grateful to Xiao Chen for his rescue, but before he could express his gratitude, he felt that he had been covered by a transparent cover. After about an hour or so, the bluish-purple flames emitted by the fire of the underworld gradually weakened. At the same time, a brand new flying sword appeared in front of Xiao Chen. This time, with the integration of Xiaoma's spirit, the new flying sword seemed to be sharper than before, and there was a faint black light. Not long ago, little Miss Xing had received the news that Song Qingshu had come to Awakening Heaven sect. It seemed that he had come to send something to Song Weizong, and she heard that he had brought a few beauties with him. However, when he saw that Xiao Chen was also present and standing behind Xing Gongzi, Song Qingshu couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes, and he muttered in his heart, "Why is this kid here?" And it seems that his relationship with sect leader Xing is quite close. Is he a disciple of Awakening Heaven sect? No wonder he was so arrogant in the venerable realm. What is this fellow doing here? Hearing that Song Qingshu had come over, little Lady Xing couldn't help but mutter in surprise. Most importantly, Xiao Chen could feel that Xiaoma's primordial spirit in the flying sword was safe and sound. It was no longer fading and about to disappear like before, but had stabilized. The next step was to wait for the ghost cultivation sect to send someone over so that Xiaoma could have a full meal. She glanced at Xiao Chen, who was beside her, and saw that he was also at a loss. It seemed that he didn't know what Song Qingshu was here for either. Xiao Chen summoned his flying sword and couldn't wait to test it in the open heaven gate. He found that the flying sword's flying speed seemed to be faster than before. It was even faster than Bai Zai's running speed. However, Jean Bebe, who was the most active in looking for Xiao Chen, didn't agree with this plan. She always had a strong hunch that if she went to the Jia family, she would find nothing. Instead, she would meet Xiao Chen and Cheng Menjing in the open heaven gate. Now that the elder heaven ancestor had guaranteed that everything would be fine, there must be no mistake. Xiao Chen's mood turned gloomy. He said eagerly, "Then let's not waste time. I'll make a primordial qi barrier for Xiaoma now. Nethery, you're in charge of forging the sword. Hurry up." After some spying, Hongzhu finally learned that Xiao Chen had joined the Jia family's team. As a venerable mentor, he led the Jia family to cultivate in the secret realm. Fortunately, after seeing Xiao Chen, Hongzhu already had a clear direction to look for. He was no longer as clueless as before. Seeing Miss Xing's pleading eyes, Xiao Chen nodded slightly. He didn't object. Miss Xing received the signal. She waved her hand and said, "Got it. Let him in." After meeting up with Song Weizong and helping the girls settle down, Song Qingshu stood at the door of the room for a long time. He decided to pay a visit to the new sect leader, Xing Gongzi. Along with Hongzhu, in addition to Shen Jingxian and Xia there were also 3 girls, Jean Bebe, Song Huawu, and Xiao Xiao. They were also in the team. Xiao Chen was afraid that Xiaoma would speak again and consume more of his vital spirit. He immediately made a barrier with his primordial qi and sealed his vital spirit in the body of the flying sword. Then, he urged the fire of the underworld to recast the flying sword as soon as possible. While treating Song Qingshu and third young master Hongzhu sent Hong Ying's team to gather information about the team entering the venerable realm. Before they set off, Hongzhu told Song Huawu and the other 2 girls that Xiao Chen had settled in the Jia family. Therefore, Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao wanted to set off to the Jia family to find Xiao Chen's whereabouts while Hongzhu and the others were going to open Heavenly Gate. Not long after the disciple left, Song Qingshu strode into the room with her head held high. When the girls heard this, they were excited and comforted. They kept asking Hongzhu and Shen Jingxian about other things about Xiao Chen. Only then did Hongzhu and the others remember that they knew nothing except that Xiao Chen had entered the venerable realm with Cheng Menjing. When they received this news, Song Weizong happened to send back the news that Open Heavenly Gate intended to cooperate with them. The Song family and the Hong family discussed and decided to let Song Qingshu, who had just recovered from her injuries, lead Hongzhu and the others to Open Heavenly Gate. Jean Bebe had always believed in her premonitions. This time, in order to persuade Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao to go to Open Heavenly Gate together, she tried all kinds of ways. In the end, the 2 girls could not resist her eloquence and had no choice but to agree. A group of female soldiers set off in a grandiose manner. Sect leader Xing, the second young master of the Song family, has come to visit and is waiting in the side hall. When Xing Beibei and Xiao Chen were discussing the sacrificial ceremony, a disciple of Open Heavenly Gate knocked on the door and came in. He reported respectfully. As the cultivation sects wanted to start the sacrificial ceremony as soon as possible, they moved relatively fast. Just one day later, Song Qingshu, who had recovered from her injuries, led a group of guards from the cultivation sects and escorted Hong Zhu, Hong Yan, and a few other girls with spiritual qi to Open Heavenly Gate and met up with Song Weizong. Elder Heaven Ancestor was speechless about Xiao Chen's straightforward character. Since someone would come to him, why would he waste his energy to go to their house? Moreover, he might not be able to settle everything even if he went there. This Xiao Chen was so stupid. Chapter 1275. Lady Xing waited for a while. When she saw that Song Qingshu was staring at Xiao Chen in shock and did not take the initiative to state the purpose of his visit, she could only say, "Young Master Song, I've troubled you to bring the sacrificial items here. You must be tired from the long journey, right? I wonder if you and your companions are used to the accommodations and food that the Awakening Heaven sect has prepared?" It's quite good. Sect leader Xing is very considerate. Little girl Xing's voice caused Song Qingshu to return to his senses. Only then did he realize that he had been a bit rash, so he hurriedly expressed his thanks. Little girl Xing waved her hand and indifferently said, "It's what I should do. If you have any special requests, feel free to mention them. I will do my best to make them better. Then I will thank sect leader Xing in advance." Song Qingshu took out an exquisite wooden box from his bosom and forced a smile on his face. "In order to congratulate you on becoming the new sect leader of the Awakening Heaven sect, our immortal sect has specially prepared a small congratulatory gift. I hope that sect leader Xing will kindly accept it." Little girl Xing was slightly startled. She stood up and received the box, then placed it on the table. Without opening it, she smiled and expressed her thanks. "Young Master Song is very thoughtful. The Awakening Heaven sect is very grateful for the congratulatory gift." Originally, Song Qingshu was just going through the motions. He wanted to use the gift as an opportunity to promote the relationship between the Immortal sect and the Awakening Heaven sect. Seeing that little girl Xing had accepted the box, he did not plan on saying anything more. He cupped his hands and prepared to leave. However, before he could open his mouth, he saw a hand suddenly reach out and pick up the box on the table. Song Qingshu was immediately startled. He opened his mouth to shout, only to see Xiao Chen swagger out from behind little girl Xing. "Let me take a look. What kind of things have been delivered?" Xiao Chen chuckled and raised his eyebrows. He casually picked up the wooden box and opened it in one go. "You! Rude!" Song Qingshu hadn't expected Xiao Chen to do this. Her eyes immediately burned with anger, and she glared fiercely at Xiao Chen. The sect master hadn't even said anything, yet you, a sect disciple, had casually opened a guest's gift. "Don't you know your place?" Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered with Song Qingshu's accusations. He looked down at the things in the box and found that they were all precious treasures and a few rare healing pills. After carefully identifying the treasures in the wooden box, Xiao Chen curled his lips in disdain. If it was in the past, he might have thought that these things were quite high-end. However, during this period of time, under Sky's guidance, Xiao Chen had gradually learned to distinguish which herbs were relatively rare and which were common goods that weren't worth mentioning. He wasn't like in the past, where he viewed everything as a treasure. "I say, aren't your cultivation sects too stingy? These things can be found everywhere on the street. How can you take them out? Do you really think that our Awakening Heaven sect master Xing hasn't seen anything good?" Xiao Chen snorted and casually threw the wooden box on the table. In reality, Xiao Chen's words were a bit exaggerated. The treasures in the box were not bad, but compared to the ones he had collected in the Venerable Realm, they were clearly several streets behind. Having already seen good things, Xiao Chen naturally didn't place these herbs in his eyes. "Arrogant fellow. This is a congratulatory gift from our sect to sect master Xing. You are just a small disciple. What right do you have to look through it? How many good things have you seen? What right do you have to say that these treasures are everywhere? Song Qingshu felt humiliated and couldn't help but retort angrily. If it weren't for Sect Master Xing's face, Song Qingshu would have already beheaded Xiao Chen on the spot. A small fry from the Awakening Heaven sect, relying on the fact that he could stand by the sect master's side, dared to speak without thinking. Did he really think that their sect was easy to bully? Of course I've seen a lot. Xiao Chen crossed his arms in front of his chest and expressionlessly said, Our sect master Xing has traveled to famous mountains and rivers since she was young. She has seen countless rare and precious herbs. She has already lost interest in these things since she was 3 years old. Little girl Xing secretly rolled her eyes. Xiao Chen really knew how to talk. When did she run off to travel? Why don't I have any recollection of it? Sneaking another glance at the opened wooden box on the table, little girl Xing discovered that there were quite a few good herbs and pills inside. She couldn't help but mutter to herself, Song Qingshu's congratulatory gift is quite good. Even if it's not good, it's still a token of goodwill. Why is Xiao Chen being so picky? Could it be that he and Song Qingshu have a grudge in the past? Isn't this not giving him any face? Little girl Xing pondered over her own thoughts, but in Song Qingshu's eyes, her silence was seen as tacit approval of Xiao Chen. Song Qingshu was somewhat unhappy. How could he make a mistake when he sent a gift? However, he was currently in someone else's territory, so Song Qingshu endured and didn't flare up. He just casually cupped his hands and said, Since the Awakening Heaven sect doesn't like the things of our sect, then you can do with this congratulatory gift. Goodbye. Hey, wait a moment. Without waiting for Song Qingshu to leave, Xiao Chen suddenly called out to him, Why are you leaving just like that? Considering that you're new here, we'll let bygones be bygones this time. Go and prepare another congratulatory gift. At least send some top-level heavenly materials and earthly treasures, cultivation manuals, top-grade elixirs, and so on. Bring all the valuable things over. Valuable things? What do you think counts as valuable? Song Qingshu was so angry that he laughed and asked coldly. Xiao Chen rubbed his chin and seemed to think seriously for a while before saying, Well, it has to at least be able to enter the eyes of our sect master Xing. My ass. Brat, I think you're really courting death. I already let you off in the venerable realm. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Song Qingshu was completely infuriated by Xiao Chen's attitude. He circulated his mental cultivation method and instantly displayed his venerable level 5 cultivation. A majestic pressure swept towards Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. It wasn't because of the pressure. After all, he was an expert of the profound ascension stage. To him, this little bit of pressure was basically negligible. It was just that Song Qingshu's impulsive attitude made Xiao Chen feel a little unhappy. Could it be that this brat still couldn't see the situation clearly? This was the Awakening Heaven sect's territory. He actually wanted to act rashly in front of the sect master Xing. Was this really okay? Sure enough, when the little girl felt the pressure, her face immediately darkened. She was very dissatisfied with Song Qingshu's behavior. She said coldly, Young Master Song, isn't it a little inappropriate to teach a disciple of our sect in front of this sect master? Chapter 1276. Although she was somewhat puzzled by Xiao Chen's mocking of Song Qingshu, Xing was naturally biased towards Xiao Chen's side. Moreover, she was very clear that Song Qingshu was definitely not Xiao Chen's opponent. Xing Gongzi had taken advantage of the fact that the two hadn't started fighting to resolve the conflict between the two sides. Xing Gongzi also wanted to save Song Qingshu's life. If Xiao Chen got angry and killed Song Qingshu, then the Immortal Cultivation sect would use this as a reason to make things difficult for them. Hearing Xing Gongzi's voice, Song Qingshu was stunned for a moment. His head, which had been clouded by anger, instantly sobered up. He also realized that what he had done wasn't very appropriate. Although he only wanted to teach Xiao Chen a lesson, they were currently in Awakening Heaven sect. If he made a move against a disciple in front of the sect master, it would be a serious matter. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the immortal cultivation sect was provoking awakening heaven sect. Apologies, Sect Master Xing. I was too impulsive. In order to avoid trouble, Song Qingshu took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He said indifferently, I have never seen the behavior of your disciple before, so I was presumptuous and wanted to help Sect Master Xing teach him a lesson. I was overstepping my boundaries. Song Qingshu was somewhat dissatisfied with Sect Master Xing's behavior of shielding his disciple. Therefore, although he apologized, his words were still full of sarcasm. He didn't feel apologetic at all. Forget it. Both of you are in the wrong. Just restrain yourselves a little. Xing Gongzi waved her hand and mediated. She could naturally hear the sarcasm in Song Qingshu's words. However, Xing Gongzi didn't care too much in order to keep the peace. She only pretended that she didn't hear it and casually said, no matter how heavy the congratulatory gift from the immortal cultivation sect is, this sect master is very grateful. I will accept it. Young Master Song must be tired after a whole day of traveling. You should return to your room and rest. Song Qingshu wasn't stupid. Anyone could see that Lady Xing was biased towards Xiao Chen. He felt even more disdain for Xiao Chen's act of living off a woman. However, he had no other choice. He could only cup his hands at Lady Xing and say, if that's the case, I'll take my leave. After saying that, Song Qingshu glared fiercely at Xiao Chen again. Thinking that he would teach this brat a lesson sooner or later, he stormed off in a huff. Amazing. You actually managed to escape unscathed after acting tough in front of this young master. Your luck is pretty good. As he watched Song Qingshu leave angrily, the corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up as he mocked in a voice that was neither loud nor soft. Song Qingshu hadn't gone far, so he naturally heard Xiao Chen's deliberate words. However, he could only pretend that he didn't hear it now. He repeatedly thought about how he could find an opportunity to beat up Xiao Chen. It would be best if Xing Gongzi didn't find out. As he pondered, he returned to his residence. Song Qingshu couldn't vent his anger, so he sat unhappily in the outer hall. As long as he thought about Xiao Chen's arrogant and despotic face, Song Qingshu would feel a fire from the soles of his feet all the way to the top of his head. He was very unhappy. In order to calm his mood, Song Qingshu simply picked up the teapot on the table and poured himself a cup of water. When he was about to drink it, he was scalded again. Damn it, even a cup dares to bully me. The infuriated Song Qingshu slammed the cup on the ground and smashed it into pieces. Qingshu, what's wrong with you? Who are you so angry with for no reason? Song Weizong heard the commotion and quickly walked out from the inner room. He looked strangely at the broken cup on the ground and asked in astonishment. In Song Weizong's impression, although Song Qingshu was usually a little arrogant, he was still quite rational. Even when he was angry, he had never smashed a cup. This time, it seemed a little abnormal. Hongzhu and the other women were chatting in the room. When they heard the commotion, they also ran out to see what was going on. In the end, they found Song Qingshu fuming with anger and smashing cups. The women all revealed looks of contempt on their faces. This person was too much. How could he throw a tantrum in Qi Tianmen's residence? He even smashed other people's cups. Did he really think that this was his own Song family and he could do whatever he wanted? Grandfather, you really can't blame me for this. It's all because of that follower of Sect Master Xing. He's simply too much. Song Qingshu's anger had yet to dissipate. She slammed the table heavily and vented her anger. What did you say? Sect leader Xing's follower? Did you provoke a Jian? Song Weizong was shocked and could not help but break out in a cold sweat for Song Qingshu. The tragic scene of West Mountain Mad Demon being beaten up was still vivid in his mind. He did not expect that Song Qingshu would offend A Jian so soon after coming to Qi Tian sect. Song Weizong was also really anxious. He immediately said with a sullen face, "Before you set off from the Song family, I had already told you. After you arrived at Qi Tianmen, I reminded you again that you must not have any conflict with Ah Jian. Not only is he the mastermind behind Qi Tian Men, but his strength is also outstanding. Even West Mountain Mad Demon is just a piece of trash in his hands. How could you be so careless? Hurry up and apologize to him. Grandfather, what are you talking about? I didn't see Ah Jian. Besides, you have already reminded me so many times. How could I make such a mistake again? Song Qingshu saw that Song Weizong was so anxious that his face was red. He quickly waved his hand and explained, the person I am talking about is Xiao Chen. He's the fellow I mentioned to you when I returned from the Exalt's secret realm. It turned out that Song Qingshu had been seriously injured in the Venerable Realm. After Hongzhu and the others carried him back for treatment, he found a time to talk to Song Weizong about everything that happened in the Venerable Realm. Naturally, he mentioned that Xiao Chen had helped the women break through. When Song Weizong heard about this, he was also very surprised. He repeatedly reminded Song Qingshu that if he met Xiao Chen again in the future, he must invite him back to the Song family. After all, Xiao Chen's ability could be said to be rare in the world. If he could be used by the Song family, or even the entire immortal cultivation sect, it would save a lot of detours for the disciples of the sect. Before Song Weizong could speak, Song Huawu, who was standing to the side, suddenly heard Xiao Chen's name. Her whole body trembled and she rushed over, grabbed Song Qingshu's collar and asked loudly, Song Qingshu. What did you say just now? Xiao Chen is also in Qi Tian Men? You have seen him? Hearing Song Huawu shout, the women also came to their senses. They all had different expressions. Before Song Qingshu could answer, Jean Bei's loud voice rang out, Ow, ow, ow. Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law is really here. Super Prophet Bei's sixth sense is working again. Chapter 1277. Jean Bei was so excited that she almost danced. She quickly ran to Song Qingshu, grabbed his sleeve, and asked impatiently, Hey, Song something, have you seen my cousin Qing Menjing? Is she with Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law? Are they married? Did they have a baby? Hongzhu and Xia Fei looked at each other, feeling very surprised, too. Didn't they hear that Xiao Chen was in the Jia clan? Why did he come to Open Heaven sect and work as leader Xing's subordinate? The Jia clan was one of the three major clans, which was supposed to be hostile to Open Heaven sect, the leader of the dark sects. Xiao Chen was a bit far away. Did he offend someone from Open Heaven sect in the Venerable Realm? Was that why he was captured? Shen Jingxian did not know much about the situation. She had thought that she might never see Xiao Chen again. She did not expect to hear that he was also here. She was a bit excited. Unlike Jean Bei and Song Huawu, she was not as emotional as Jean Bei and Song Huawu. She just blushed and clutched her sleeves tightly. Her slightly trembling body showed the surging emotions in her heart. Kerlin and Xiao Xiao, on the other hand, looked a bit unnatural. Although they had received the news of Xiao Chen again, and he was already very close to them, they were not particularly happy. Kerlin's impression of Xiao Chen had always been his scary look. Although she knew that Xiao Chen was not what she imagined, she did not know how to face him for the moment. As for Xiao Xiao, she was a bit bothered by Jean Bei's words. Whenever she thought that Xiao Chen was together with Qing Menjing, she would feel sour in her heart. The calmest person in the entire hall should be that little girl, Hong Yan. She didn't care much about the big pervert Xiao Chen, but just like Hongzhu, she was surprised that Xiao Chen was in the Open Heaven gate. During this time, Hong Yan learned that there were so many girls around her who liked Xiao Chen. Although her hatred for him didn't decrease, she was more curious about him. Song Qingshu paid no attention to Jean Bei's surprised behavior. Instead, she looked at Song Huawu and said in a low voice, Huawu, I know you like that kid, Xiao Chen. But you've really misjudged him this time. Not only does he oppose our immortal cultivation sect in all aspects, but he has also become a lackey of Awakening Heaven sect, hugging sect master Xing's thigh, and flirting with him. Oh, Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law has caught the eye of the sect leader again? My cousin-in-law is so awesome. Jean Bebe waved her little fist in the air and cheered loudly. Humph, in the secret realm of the Venerable Realm, if I had remembered that he was the guy that Hua Wu liked, I would have killed him a long time ago. Song Qingshu snorted. Then, she said to Song Huawu in a gentle voice, Huawu, you are my only biological sister. I don't want you to be fooled by that scumbag Xiaoqin. Although he is in Open Heaven's sect right now, I advise you not to go to him. Song Qingshu had always been disgusted by the arrogant Xiaoqin. Now that she knew that he had so many women around him and that he was hooking up with the leader of Open Heaven's sect, she was even more convinced that he was not a good guy. How could Hua Wu be with such a scumbag? Absolutely not. Thank you for your kindness, but Xiao Chen and I have always been in a free relationship. I won't mind no matter how many girlfriends he has. Song Huawu had calmed down a little. She let go of Song Qingshu's collar and said calmly, now, you only need to tell me where Xiao Chen is. You don't have to worry about anything else. Song Huawu's eyes were extremely firm at this moment. Song Qingshu's accusation did not seem to affect her at all. She still insisted on her idea. Exactly. I didn't criticize you before, but I can't stand it this time. Song Qingshu, aren't you being too nosy? Besides, Xiao Chen saved your life before. I didn't expect that you would speak ill of him behind his back. How ungentlemanly you are. Hongzhu rolled his eyes. Apparently, he was also very dissatisfied with Song Qingshu's attitude. Right. We like to play threes, fourths, and fifths with our cousin-in-law. You don't have a girlfriend, but you are jealous of your cousin-in-law. That is not the right attitude. Jean Bebe shook her head and lectured him. However, after she said a few words, Jean Bebe suddenly felt that her hand was secretly pinched by Xiao Xiao. She turned around and asked in confusion, Xiao Xiao, why did you pinch me? Am I wrong? Xiao Xiao opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she did not say it. In the end, she said helplessly, well, forget it. You can play if you like. Although she did not say it, Xiao Xiao was still a little bit worried. Jean Bebe was too imaginative. She talked about this and that in front of two men. Didn't she see that the other girls were all blushing? She even said it in such a loud voice. She really had no eyesight at all. Huawu, I'm thinking for you and the cultivation sects, not for myself. Why did you? Song Qingshu tried hard to persuade Song Huawu with a bitter face. He really could not figure out what was on his sister's mind. That Xiao Chen was absolutely a scumbag. What was so good about him that Huawu liked him so much? Before Song Qingshu could finish his words, Song Huawu waved her hand and interrupted him impatiently. Song Qingshu, I'll repeat it to you again. I've never regarded you as my brother, so stop preaching to me. Now, you just need to tell me and us sisters where to find Xiao Chen. I won't listen to anything else even if you tell me. Huawu is right. Song Qingshu, just tell us quickly. Don't waste our time. Hongzhu and the other girls echoed. This Song Qingshu was too long-winded. They really didn't want to listen to his nonsense anymore. If it weren't for the fact that they had just arrived at the open heavenly gate and were unable to move freely, they would have rushed out to find Xiao Chen. Well. Okay. Song Qingshu sighed gloomily and said, Xiao Chen is in sect leader Xing's room, but they seem to be discussing something important. Before Song Qingshu finished his words, Hongzhu and the other girls had already run out of the hall. They were not in the mood to listen to him at all. They ran as fast as the wind and disappeared in an instant. The hall, which was originally full of people, became empty in an instant. Apart from Song Qingshu, who was livid, only Song Weizong, Kerlin, and Hong Yan were left in the hall. Hong Yan was not interested in meeting Xiao Chen. She was not on good terms with Xiao Chen and did not want to see him again. Therefore, she did not go with Hongzhu and the other girls. Instead, she prepared to return to her room and cultivate quietly. Chapter 1278. As for Kerlin, her movements were a beat too slow. By the time she reacted, the hall was already empty. Kerlin looked around in a panic. She bit her lower lip and pondered for a moment. Although she felt that it would be a little awkward to see Xiao Qin, there was no one close to her at the moment. The only person she could get close to was Xiao Qin. After thinking for a while, she greeted Hong Yan and walked out of the hall, carefully following behind Hong Zhu and the other women. After the women ran out of the residence, they immediately found a disciple of the Awakening Heaven sect. After asking for the location of little Miss Xing's room, they all rushed in that direction. Song Qingshu's words were stuck in her throat. She stared at the empty door with an ugly expression on her face. Qingshu, to tell you the truth, I also feel that you didn't handle this matter properly. Seeing that Song Qingshu was still sulking, Song Weizong shook his head and said earnestly, think about it, Xiao Qin saved your life. At the very least, he is your benefactor. No matter how much you dislike him, you should go and thank him. Grandfather, you didn't see how arrogant Xiao Qin was just now. He didn't care about me at all. How am I supposed to thank someone like him? Song Qingshu gritted her teeth in anger when she recalled the scene just now. She couldn't accept Song Weizong's advice at all. Qingshu, what you said is wrong. Song Weizong lectured in a low voice. How others act arrogantly is their business. You can't waste your courtesy. We cultivators can't be as selfish as the ghost cultivators. Yes, Grandfather Song is right. Hong Yan nodded and agreed with Song Weizong. I was also present in the Venerable Realm. At that time, third brother Hong and second young master Song had already fainted. If it wasn't for Xiao Qin driving away that ferocious beast, we might have been left there and never returned. Although she did not quite approve of Xiao Qin, Hong Yan still understood the principle of repaying a drop of kindness with a gushing spring after receiving a drop of water from him. Song Qingshu looked at Hong Yan in confusion and asked, Hong Yan, why are you speaking up for Xiao Qin? You've seen that guy's temper. He's the kind of guy who won't forgive when he's in the right. Even if he's being unreasonable, he'll still argue. He never considers other people's feelings. I can't communicate with him. Actually, I don't think he's that unreasonable. At most, he's a little arrogant. Hong Yan frowned. She looked at Song Qingshu and said, even if he really is that kind of person, he did save all of us in the venerable mystic realm. No matter what, we should thank him, shouldn't we? If you don't want to see him alone, why don't we go together? In fact, Hong Yan had her own reasons for making this suggestion. Although she didn't dare to meet Xiao Qin, ever since Xiao Qin left in a hurry in the Venerable Realm, she had been thinking about thanking him. Since there was such an opportunity, Hong Yan wanted to bring Song Qingshu along. At least with someone to boost her courage, it wouldn't be too awkward. Oh, Hong Yan is right. We cultivators always know how to repay kindness. We can't let others be disappointed. Song Weizong nodded in agreement with Hong Yan's words. He turned around and patted Song Qingshu's shoulder. He said calmly, think about it carefully. Once you've made up your mind, go talk to Xiao Qin with Hong Yan. Even if he's not willing to help the cultivators, maybe you two can become good friends. After persuading Song Qingshu, Song Weizong turned around and returned to his room. He still had to study the sacrificial ceremony method carefully, so he didn't care too much about these trivial matters. Since it was a matter between the young people, he would let them solve it themselves. Song Qingshu didn't speak for a long time. His expression changed several times, and he couldn't decide what to do. On one hand, he felt that his grandfather's words were reasonable, but on the other hand, Xiao Qin was too arrogant. If his temper flared up and he couldn't help but injure Xiao Qin, then not only would he offend the Awakening Heaven sect Master Xing, Hong Zhu, and the others would definitely condemn him in both word and writing, criticizing him in all sorts of ways. While Song Qingshu was hesitating, unable to come to a decision, Hong Zhu and the other girls were already filled with joy and excitement. Like a flock of butterflies, they flew across a garden and walked along the weeping willow path next to the man-made lake for the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. Finally, they arrived at the door of Xing Girl's room. Jean Bebe ran to the door first. When she was about to push the door open, a roar suddenly echoed not far away. The few girls turned around, only to see a team of guards wearing the uniform of Awakening Sect running close. They stared at them warily and shouted, "Who are you? What's your purpose in coming to sect leader Xing's room?" "Young man, we are all the girlfriends of Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law." Jean Bebe waved her hands and said in a hurry, "Stop asking so many questions. Just let us in." Hardly had she concluded her sentence when Jean Bebe was about to barge into the room in a hurry. However, before she took 2 steps closer, the captain of guards had already stopped her. "What nonsense are you talking about? What girlfriends and cousin-in-law? This is the room of sect leader Xing of Awakening Sect. Why is your cousin-in-law here?" The more the captain of guards listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. Why was the girl talking so incoherently that he could not even understand what she was saying? "I know that this is your leader's room. My cousin-in-law is right inside." Jean Bebe grew anxious. She pushed away the captain's hand and charged into the room. "Stop right there." The captain of guards blinked and stopped in front of Jean Bebe again. With a grave face, he revealed the cultivation of the peak of the 5th level of the Devil King realm and scolded coldly, "How did you get into Awakening Sect? Are you spies sent by other sects? Surround them." The last sentence was spoken to his subordinates. The group of guards immediately spread out upon hearing this, and they glared fiercely at Jean Bebe and the others. They were waiting for the guard captain's order and were prepared to capture them at any moment. "Cousin-in-law. Bebe is here for you. Don't hide in the room anymore. Come out and explain. If you don't come out, your favorite Jean Bebe will be taken away." Seeing that the situation was not right, Jean Bebe immediately took a deep breath and shouted into the room. Squeak. The captain of guards was both shocked and infuriated to see that Jean Bebe was still yelling. He was about to give the order to capture them when he suddenly heard the door open behind him. Then, a man and a woman strode out. They were exactly Xiao Chen and Lady Xing. Chapter 1279. Bebe. It's really you. What are you doing here? Hearing the familiar shout, Xiao Chen was startled. After he walked out and saw the scene in front of him, he was so surprised that his mouth was wide open. Pushing away the captain of the bodyguards in front of him, Xiao Chen turned around and looked at the few girls behind Jean Bebe. With disbelief on his face, he rubbed his eyes and took a closer look. In the end, he blurted out in shock, "Hua Wu. Xiao Xiao. Lin. How did you guys end up together? What's going on here? Hongzhu, Consort Xia, and Jingxian, why are you here, too?" Xiao Chen felt as if he was in a dream when he saw the face that he had been extremely familiar with but had not seen for a long time appear before his eyes once again. He thought that it was an illusion set up by a cultivator expert like him. He hurriedly released his divine sense and scanned the surroundings. However, he did not find any traces of strangers at all. What was going on? Xing was not familiar with Jean Bebe and the rest of them. Therefore, she was confused, too. However, when she turned around, she happened to see Lin, who was standing at the back of the girls. Her eyes immediately shone. She knew Lin. Wasn't she the pretty girl from the breakfast stall that Xiao Chen had a crush on? After connecting the dots, Xing basically guessed the identity of the various beautiful girls in front of her. She was not as shocked as Xiao Chen. Instead, she winked at the captain of the bodyguards and gave him a few instructions in a low voice. The captain of the bodyguards had thought that he would be punished for mistaking an honorable guest. He was feeling uneasy, but as it turned out, not only was leader Xing not punishing him, but he was also delegating tasks to him. Feeling both grateful and ashamed, he immediately left with his subordinates in a hurry to carry out leader Xing's orders. "Xiao Chen. Is it really you? I'm not dreaming, am I?" The courtyard was silent for a moment, then Song Huawu's emotional voice suddenly rang out. The rims of her eyes reddened in an instant, and tears kept rolling down her cheeks. She rushed to Xiao Chen with large strides and carefully looked at him a few times. Like a young swallow returning to the forest, she threw herself into his arms and sobbed softly. Xiao Xiao was a step slower. She originally wanted to throw herself into Xiao Chen's arms, but Song Huawu beat her to it. She had no choice but to walk over and hold Xiao Chen's hand. She choked and said, "Brother, where have you been these days? Why didn't he call his family? We all miss you very much. My grandfather and my father have sent many people to search for your whereabouts. They're almost going crazy with anxiety." Ao. Cousin-in-law Xiao Chen, is that really you? Jean Bebe rubbed her eyes hard. Although she was usually carefree, she was so excited that hot tears were brimming in her eyes right now. Jean Bebe had been standing in front of Xiao Chen. Right now, Song Huawu was in Xiao Chen's arms, and Xiao Xiao was next to him. Therefore, she simply took a detour and walked to Xiao Chen's back. Then, she suddenly jumped on his back and hugged Xiao Chen tightly. She shouted, "Cousin, where did you and Cousin Menjing go? When I returned to the villa, I found that you were both not there. I thought that the Qing family and the Xiao family had gone bankrupt. Hey, Bebe, you seem to have grown bigger again. You are much heavier now." Caught unprepared, Xiao Chen was strangled by Jean Bebe heavily. He immediately felt that it was hard for him to breathe. However, the soft and fragrant scent on his back made him feel rather comfortable. How long had it been since Jean Bebe called him cousin? 1 year? 2 years? While supporting Jean Bebe in case she fell off, Xiao Chen had mixed feelings in his heart. He had imagined what it would be like to meet the girls again countless times, but he did not expect that they would show up at the same time. Lin Kuer stood at the edge of the courtyard, silently looking at Xiao Chen. Although she also felt an indescribable impulse in her heart when they reunited after such a long time, and really wanted to rush up and hug him tightly, she still endured it. She still stood where she was, and did not act as boldly as the other girls. Besides, Lin did not dare do that. After all, she was not Xiao Chen's family. She was not even Xiao Chen's official girlfriend. The two of them were merely classmates. Although Xiao Chen had confessed his love to her before, Lin did not say yes at that time. Therefore, she did not have an appropriate identity to do something as bold as Song Huawu. She could only stand aside and watch Xiao Chen quietly. As for Shen Jingxian and CFA, they were not as excited as the other girls. They simply observed the scene with a smile on their faces. They had just met Xiao Chen a few days ago. Although the joy of their reunion was intense, too, they did not forget themselves. Therefore, they naturally gave up the special power to Jean Bebe and the rest of them, who had been searching for Xiao Chen for such a long time. After all, they had found Xiao Chen now, and they would have a lot of time to spend with him. There was no need to rush. Naturally, Hongzhu did not make any big movements. Instead, he stood where he was and watched Xiao Chen being surrounded by a group of girls with great interest. Hongzhu very much wanted to find an opportunity to tease Xiao Chen and tease this little boy. However, when he saw him hugging Song Huawu and the other girls tightly, he somehow felt touched and a little jealous, as if he was envious that they could be so intimate with Xiao Chen. In fact, Hongzhu also had a vague good impression of Xiao Chen, but he did not think that they had reached the level of intimacy yet. Among all the people present, the one who felt the most uncomfortable should be Miss Xing, who was standing behind Xiao Chen. Seeing that he was so busy with Song Huawu in his arms and Xiao Xiao holding his hand tightly, and even carrying Jean Bebe, the beautiful girl with the face of an angel and the body of a devil, Miss Xing felt a little uncomfortable. However, Miss Xing did not show it obviously, because it was normal for an expert like Xiao Chen to have multiple wives and concubines in the martial arts world. She had long been used to it. However, she could not help but feel a little jealous when she encountered such a scene. Moreover, Xiao Chen did not have multiple wives and concubines at all. There were already 8 women standing in the yard. Together with Qing Menjing, Ling Qinxue, and the others in the backyard, they could almost form a female army. Miss Xing could not help but secretly roll her eyes at Xiao Chen. Let's see if you can handle it. Bei. Why did you come to the Heavenly Awakening Gate? Huh? Xiao Xiao is here too. Just when Xiao Chen was flustered and did not know what to do, a surprised voice suddenly sounded. It turned out that Qing Menjing had rushed over. Wow, so many people. I didn't expect Sister Sour to have so many sisters. My husband, Xiao Chen, is really awesome. Tian Sour exclaimed as she popped her head out from behind Qing Menjing. Ling Qinxua, Ling, and Tang Tang also followed her into Miss Xing's yard. Chapter 1280. As it turned out, Miss Xing had guessed that those people were Xiao Chen's old friends. That was why she had asked the captain of the guards to summon Qing Menjing and the rest of them from the backyard. Menjing. Qing Menjing was looking around when she suddenly heard a familiar voice. She turned around, only to discover that Shen Jingxian was walking toward her in delight. Jingxian. Why? Why are you here, too? Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Qing Menjing's eyes shone. She also ran to Shen Jingxian in a hurry. The two of them soon held hands. They were both excited to reunite with their best friends who had not seen each other for a long time. Tang Tang and the other girls found an empty space in the yard and stood still. They had all seen that Xiao Chen was surrounded by a bunch of beautiful girls, but they were not very surprised. They had heard about the past from Xiao Chen on their way to explore the inner martial arts world. Therefore, they were rather calm at this moment. Ow! 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 Cousin Menjing, I finally get to see you. Bebe misses you so much that I've almost gone crazy. Although Jean Bebe said that, she did not intend to leave Xiao Chen's shoulder at all. She was still hugging him tightly and only waved one of her hands as a greeting. Bebe, hurry up and get down. You are a girl. What are you doing in broad daylight? What are you doing? Seeing Jean Bebe's behavior, Qing Menjing had no time to catch up with Shen Jingxian anymore. She immediately scolded Jean Bebe with her hands on her hips. It was obvious that she was very dissatisfied with Jean Bebe's behavior. Forget it, Menjing. Bebe has always been doing whatever she wants. You know that. Besides, she hasn't seen Xiao Chen for a long time. It's rare for her to be so excited. Just let her be. Shen Jingxian carelessly tucked her long hair behind her ear. With a smile on her face, she shook Qing Menjing's hand and said gently. No, Jingxian, look. Qing Menjing turned around. She was about to complain to Shen Jingxian about Jean Bebe's lack of propriety when she saw Jean Bebe flipping her hair. Her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She couldn't help but murmur, Jingxian, you were already very beautiful. How come you seem to have become even more beautiful? Shen Jingxian pursed her lips and smiled. Just as she was about to reply, little Miss Xing's voice suddenly rang out, all right, everyone, let's not stay outside. If you have anything to say, let's talk inside. There are often guards and disciples walking around here. It wouldn't be appropriate to let them see it. After she finished speaking, little Miss Xing generously gestured for everyone to enter her room. Afterwards, she ordered a disciple to bring some snacks and fruits to entertain everyone. Little Miss Xing's room was quite spacious. However, after more than 10 people crowded in, the room was somewhat full. Thankfully, other than Xiao Chen, the rest of the guests were all slender and beautiful women. Even though they were crowded together, they were still very pleasing to the eye. Also, the girls did not care too much about it. The moment they entered the room, they split into several groups and chatted with each other. After all, some of them were very good friends in the past. They had been reunited after a long time, and they had all experienced different lives. Naturally, they began to talk about the stories that had happened recently. After entering the room, Xiao Chen was originally full of questions. He planned to ask them one by one about what had happened when he was away, how Song Huawu, Jean Bebe, and Xiao Xiao met each other, and how they had come here together with Hongzhu and the others. However, before he could ask any questions, he had already learned the whole story from the chatter of the girls. Xiao Chen could not help but sigh inwardly. The fate of the world was really wonderful. People who were originally not even close to each other had become good sisters who depended on each other because of him. Tang Tang and Shen Jingxian chatted for a while. Then, she rolled her eyes and glimpsed a person standing silently in the corner. After taking a closer look, she found that it was Kerlin. She walked over and greeted her with a smile. "Sister Ker, why are you standing here alone in a daze? Come and chat with us." "Hello, Sister Tang Tang. I'm not very familiar with them, so I won't go over." "It's fine to stand here," Kerlin blushed. She hurriedly waved her hand and said in a low voice in embarrassment. Seeing Kerlin's reaction, Tang Tang shook her head with a smile and said, "I haven't seen you for such a long time, but you are still so timid and shy. I really don't know what to do with you. By the way, how are your parents? Are they still selling noodles in the morning market street?" A trace of joy appeared on Kerlin's face when she mentioned her parents. Her tone also became lively. "Thank you for your concern, Sister Tang Tang. My parents are in good health. It's all thanks to Sister Hongzhu for providing help to my family." "Ah. Hongzhu? What kind of help can she provide you?" Tang Tang showed a very surprised expression. She had heard Xiao Chen mention Hongzhu 2 days ago, but how did she get involved with Kerlin's parents? "Sister Hongzhu specially found someone to cure my father's old illness. She also changed my family to a new house and let my parents move out of the shanty town. I really don't know how to thank her." Kerlin's voice was very grateful. Obviously, she was deeply impressed by Hongzhu's help. "Are you serious? Why is Hongzhu so good to you? Does she owe you a big favor?" Tang Tang felt even more puzzled. Hongzhu's behavior really surprised her. Logically speaking, Kerlin was just an ordinary person in the secular world. Basically, it was impossible for her to be friends with Hongzhu. "It's not like that." Kerlin shook her head and explained, "Actually, it's like this. I was captured by a bad guy. Later, Sister Hongzhu and another sister, Li Xiener, risked their lives to save me. They even got seriously injured. They said that I was a woman with spiritual energy, so I would be captured by the bad guys. Then, following that, Lin Kuo recounted how she had been captured by the evil cultivators in the secular world, and how she had been rescued by Hongzhu. She had even been brought to see Consort Xia, and how they had returned to the inner martial world with her. However, after arriving at the Hong family, because her strength was too low, the head of the Hong family judged that she was really not suitable to enter the venerable realm to train. Therefore, she stayed in the Hong family with Jean Bebe and the others. She did not go out until 2 days ago. She also learned about the experience of Hongzhu and the others in the secret realm later. After listening to her, Tang Tang could not help but sympathize with Kerlin's tortuous experience. When she was about to comfort her, Xiao Chen's voice suddenly sounded, "Kerlin, are you sure that Lu Shuangshuang was also captured by the evil practitioners? Do you know where she was taken?" In the process of Lin Kuo's narration, she also mentioned that Lu Shuangshuang had also been captured. Although the room was rather noisy, Xiao Chen's acute hearing was still able to clearly hear what everyone was saying. Lin Kuo's narration was also heard by him without missing a single word. Chapter 1281. At this moment, Xiao Chen's brows were slightly furrowed and his expression became somewhat solemn. He felt that if what Lin Kuo said was true, then he had to put aside the matter of the sacrifice and save Lu Shuangshuang first. This. I'm also not too sure, it's all from Big Sister Hongzhu, she told me. Lin Kuo was startled by Xiao Chen, and her voice trembled as she stammered. Every time she faced Xiao Chen, Kerlin would feel a little unnatural and inexplicably flustered. Even though she knew that Xiao Chen was not a bad guy, she could not control her nervousness. Even she could not figure out the reason. "Hongzhu. Come here." What is the background of the evil cultivator who captured Lu Shuangshuang? Xiao Chen immediately turned his head and shouted. Because Xiao Chen's voice was relatively loud, the surrounding women stopped chatting when they heard him. Their astonished gazes converged on Xiao Chen and Hongzhu. Little brother Xiao Chen, why are you so fierce to me? You scared this baby to death. Hongzhu did not notice anything wrong at first and teased with a smile. Only when he saw Xiao Chen's sharp and serious eyes did he realize the seriousness of the problem. He put away his smile and said seriously, as far as I know, Lu Shuangshuang was captured by the Ghost Cultivation Sect. Ghost Cultivation Sect. Xiao Chen gnashed his teeth and repeated. The Ghost Cultivation Sect was a group of treacherous villains. They were not as civilized as the Immortal Cultivation Sect. After Lu Shuangshuang was captured by them, she must have suffered a lot. If he had known that it was them, he would have beaten Mad Demon Shishan more ruthlessly. Putting away his anger, Xiao Chen continued to ask in a deep voice, then do you know what price we have to pay to open the Immortal Cultivation world? At that time, Song Weizong of the Immortal Cultivation Sect had been evasive with his words in the meeting room, which had aroused Xiao Chen's suspicions. It just so happened that Hongzhu was from the Immortal Cultivation Sect. If he could not get any information from them, he could ask Hongzhu here. I also don't know how the ceremony is conducted. Hongzhu's expression collapsed as he shook his head. Aren't you from the Hong family? How come you don't even know the process of the sacrifice? Xiao Chen's heart sank. Could it be that what Song Weizong said was true? Was the method of the sacrifice really kept in a secret place and no one knew about it? Little brother Xiao Chen, I really don't want to say that you are stupid, but the sacrificial ceremony is the core secret of our Immortal Cultivation Sect. I am just a member of a clan outside the martial world, how could I possibly know about this? Hongzhu charmingly rolled her eyes at Xiao Chen, as if saying, you are really stupid. Xiao Chen paced back and forth a few times. He couldn't think of a solution for the time being, so he could only put this matter aside for the time being and change the topic back to the Ghost Cultivation Sect. Do you know how the Ghost Cultivation Sect started the sacrificial ceremony? Are they the same as you guys? First, I want to correct your concept. The Ghost Cultivation Sect cultivates some particularly cruel and bloody cultivation methods, which are still different from our Immortal Cultivation Sect. You can't compare our two sects. Hongzhu wrinkled her nose in protest. Fine. I didn't mean that. I just wanted to ask if the Ghost Cultivation Sect's sacrificial ceremony method is similar to yours. Xiao Chen helplessly shook his head and explained. Maybe. I don't know the specifics. After all, our two sects have been fighting for many years, so we are very familiar with each other's defensive intelligence. It's basically impossible to find out anything. Hongzhu spread out her hands and replied while blinking her large innocent eyes. You don't know this, and you don't know that. I really admire you. Xiao Chen glared at Hongzhu, feeling both annoyed and amused at the same time. He had thought that he would be able to obtain more information from her, but in the end, this little girl actually didn't know anything at all. It was truly infuriating. Little brother Xiao Chen, don't be like this. Let me think about what else I can tell you. Hongzhu wrinkled her nose mischievously. After thinking for a while, she said, you seem to be very concerned about Lu Shuangshuang. According to my information, apart from Lu Shuangshuang, the Ghost Cultivation Sect has also captured other women with spiritual qi in Tianfang Province and the outer martial arts world. It's a pity that although our Immortal Cultivation Sect despises their behavior, we can't do anything about it. How about it? Can I help you with this matter? What? The Ghost Cultivation Sect even dares to capture people from the outer martial arts world? Xiao Chen's expression changed as he asked in surprise, aren't they too King bold? Aren't they afraid of being punished by the martial arts world? At this time, Xiao Chen already had a vague bad feeling. After seeing Qing Menjing and Jin Beibei, he suddenly remembered that Yi Xiaoye was still in the demonic star sect in the outer martial arts world. He hoped that she wouldn't be so unlucky as to be captured by the Ghost Cultivation Sect together with Lu Shuangshuang. As for the Tianfang province, he didn't have any acquaintances. Except for Wang Fengtian of the Wang family, he didn't have any contact with other people. Also, the ghost cultivation sect probably didn't dare to make trouble in the Wang family, or they would definitely be killed by Wang Fengtian. But then again, what was the standard of this woman with spiritual qi? Yi Xiaoye was just an ordinary demonic cultivator who had nothing to do with spiritual qi at all. It was meaningless for the ghost cultivation sect to capture her. However, Xiaochen thought that even Kerlin, an ordinary person, could be captured. It was very likely that Yi Xiaoye would also be captured. Humph, those from the ghost cultivation sect wouldn't worry about such trifles. Hong Zhu's voice interrupted Xiao Chen's thoughts. She pursed her lips and muttered hatefully, with their cultivation, they'll definitely be able to successfully evade the pursuit of the cultivators from the outer world. Who knows, they might even be able to kill someone. So powerful? Xiao Chen scratched his chin and looked at Hong Zhu, who was full of fear, and asked, what about your cultivation sect? Didn't you save Kerlin from them? That's because we happened to be there, and it took us a lot of effort to save her. Hong Zhu didn't look complacent at all. Instead, she said indignantly, you should know that those from the ghost cultivation sect who can capture people are not ordinary people. When I was rescuing Kuer, I met that guy called Sun Abayo. He's very powerful. Big sister, I was almost killed by him. Alright, don't be too angry. Seeing Hong Zhu's angry expression, Xiaochen had no choice but to comfort her. When the ghost cultivation sect sends Lu Shuangshuang and the others here and confirms that they are safe, I'll think of a way to teach a few evil cultivators a lesson. On one hand, it'll be to avenge Lu Shuangshuang, and on the other hand, it'll be to help you vent your anger. Hearing that the ghost cultivation sect was so evil, Xiaochen also felt angry. However, he could only suppress it for the time being. After all, he still couldn't confirm the specific strength of the ghost cultivation sect. This was especially true for their sect leader, Shishan Junyo. According to Gong Sun Yen, he was extremely powerful and heaven-defying. Before he had a way to understand the real situation, Xiaochen still had some misgivings. Chapter 1282. Oh my good little brother Xiaochen, you really are big sister's sweet little cotton-padded jacket. The originally angry Hong Zhu instantly changed into a beautiful smile as she sweetly said, Rinjia doesn't know how to thank you. How about, this big sister suffers a little loss and dedicates my life to you? What do you think? Aside from her verbal teasing, Hong Zhu also threw a few coquettish glances at Xiao Chen from time to time, the tips of her eyebrows and the corners of her eyes exuding an indescribable charm. Forget it, I can't bear it. Xiao Chen seemed to feel that all the women's eyes had suddenly focused on him and immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. Seeing that Xiao Chen was not interested in her teasing, Hong Zhu felt a little disappointed in her heart. However, she still pouted and coquettishly said, if you miss this opportunity, you won't get another one. If you don't seize it now, it might be too late in the future. Xiao Chen was also at his wit's end with Hong Zhu, the little demoness. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. Soon after, he thought of something and asked, that's right, little Hong Zhu, there's something I don't quite understand. How can Kerlin be a so-called spiritual energy woman? She's not someone from the martial arts world. She's just an ordinary girl who hasn't cultivated before. Her parents are also commoners. You couldn't have made a mistake, right? Of course I wouldn't make a mistake. Hong Zhu glanced at Kerlin and said with a matter-of-fact expression, Big sister, I also know that she's an ordinary person. However, I can detect that there's spiritual energy in her body. Moreover, I can be sure that the spiritual energy in her body is indeed up to standard. Moreover, it's much more abundant than other people's. However, I also don't know how the spiritual energy in her body is produced. That's strange. Xiao Chen muttered in confusion. He carefully looked at Kerlin again, but he didn't find anything different about her. She was no different from before. She was still a very timid and ordinary girl. Could it be that he, as a cultivator, couldn't see the existence of Reiki? Kerlin felt a little uncomfortable under Xiao Chen's gaze. For a moment, she didn't know whether to stand or sit. She could only shyly lower her head slightly, not daring to look into Xiao Chen's eyes. Her face became redder and redder, and she slowly moved backward. But soon, she was pressed against the wall, and there was nowhere to retreat. Reporting to sect leader Xing. Young Master Song Qingshu and Miss Hong Yan of the cultivation sect have come. They say that they have an important matter to discuss with sect leader. Xiao Chen was about to ask something else when a guard suddenly shouted from outside the door. Little Miss Xing, who was standing to the side, was slightly taken aback. She couldn't understand why Song Qingshu had come again. Furthermore, he had brought a girl with him this time. Could it be that he was unconvinced after being scolded by Xiao Chen just now? Unable to guess Song Qingshu's intentions, little Miss Xing turned her head and asked Xiao Chen with her eyes. Although he was a little impatient, he didn't object. Then, she indifferently instructed, "Got it. Invite the two of them in." Seeing Hong Yan and Song Qingshu slowly enter the room one after another, Hong Zhu and the other women looked at each other in bewilderment. Didn't these two not follow them just now? Why are they here now? Especially Song Qingshu. Previously, he had strongly opposed Song Huawu coming to see Xiao Chen. Now, he had also come. However, they had come to see sect leader Xing naturally. It wasn't appropriate for them to casually ask questions. They could only silently stand in place and observe the movements of these two people, secretly pondering their intentions. Greetings, sect leader Xing. I am Hong Zhu's younger sister, Hong Yan. I am also a descendant of the cultivation sect's Hong family. This time, I have come with elder sister Hong Zhu to this precious land. Our main purpose is to participate in the cultivation world sacrificial ceremony. Hong Yan stood in the middle of the room and introduced herself to little Miss Xing. When she first walked in, Hong Yan was actually a little dumbfounded. She had originally thought that there would only be Hong Zhu and a few other women present. As long as she found a stranger that she didn't know, it should be Xing Gongzi. Unexpectedly, as soon as she stepped into the room, she discovered that there were actually several great beauties in the room that she didn't know. For a moment, she was a little confused as to which one was the sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect. However, Hong Yan quickly recognized them. This was because little Miss Xing seemed to have seen through Hong Yan's hesitation. Afraid that Hong Yan would recognize the wrong person, she took 2 steps forward. Hong Yan immediately determined that little Miss Xing was the sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect. Because of this subtle action of little Miss Xing, Hong Yan had a much better impression of her. Song Qingshu, on the other hand, looked neither servile nor overbearing. She didn't bow and stood stiffly next to Hong Yan like a block of wood. Although she was expressionless, Song Qingshu still had a trace of doubt in her heart. Why are there a few more women in this room? Moreover, all of them are outstanding beauties, charming and charming. Each of them has their own unique characteristics. Could they all be related to Xiao Chen? Hello Hong Yan, I recently took office and was busy dealing with the handover of the Awakening Heaven sect. I couldn't split myself, so I couldn't personally entertain your people. Please forgive me. Little Miss Xing saw that Hong Yan recognized her, so she politely nodded her head and casually said a few words. Hee, it's all right. As the new sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect, you must have many complicated matters to attend to. The immortal sect naturally understands. Hong Yan smiled slightly and replied very politely. After the two finished their courteous greetings, the room suddenly fell into a strange silence. Everyone was waiting for Song Qingshu, who was beside Hong Yan, to speak. In the end, he still had a straight face. His eyes wandered, and he didn't say a word. No one knew what he was thinking. Hong Yan waited for a while and gave Song Qingshu a meaningful glance. In the end, he still didn't move. She could only helplessly take the initiative to point at him and say to little Miss Xing, I heard that Song Qingshu offended your subordinates. After he returned, he felt very apologetic and wanted to specially come to apologize to Xiao Chen. I also wanted to pay a visit to sect leader Xing, so I came with him. I say, Song Qingshu, you clearly offended Xiao Chen, yet you still have the face to ask Hong Yan to accompany you to apologize. You're here yet you don't say anything. You're really making your Song clan proud. After listening to Hong Yan's explanation, Hong Zhu couldn't help but start mocking and ridiculing. Hong Zhu had always despised Song Qingshu's arrogant personality. She didn't know what he was being arrogant about, especially since this guy had inexplicably offended Xiao Chen. He wanted someone to apologize on his behalf, so she was even more displeased with him. Hong Zhu, we are all disciples of the immortal sect. Is there a need to make sarcastic remarks about me in front of everyone? Song Qingshu frowned and said with some displeasure. Song Qingshu really didn't expect that Hong Zhu would publicly refute him in front of so many people. His expression immediately became very unsightly. Chapter 1283. TSK. I think Sister Hong Zhu's words are too light. You're a dignified man, but you came here empty-handed. You didn't even bring any gifts. Most importantly, you asked another woman to come with you and stand up for you. Don't you feel ashamed? Jean Bebe rolled her eyes and said disdainfully. You're right. You're right. That's right. Since the immortal cultivators are so rich, why don't you hold a banquet of 100 tables as an apology? Maybe Sister Suru will enjoy it and put in a good word for you in front of our husband, Xiao Chen, so that you won't put on such a poker face and piss off Xiao Chen's husband, who will beat you up again. Tian Suru echoed. Hearing Tian Suru's words, Jean Bebe looked at her in satisfaction. She even raised her eyebrows and secretly raised her thumb, as if to say, you city people are really good at having fun. You are too much. Song Qingshu had never suffered such mockery before. He was so angry that his face was purple, and his body was trembling. However, he could not attack Jean Bebe and Tian Suru, nor could he argue with them. He could only hold back his anger. First of all, Song Qingshu never hit women. Second of all, his biological sister, Song Huawu, was also here. He had to be a gentleman. Even if he attacked them, Hong Zhu would certainly not stand by and do nothing. Then, he would be the one who suffered losses. Song, are you done yet? Jean Bebe is my sister-in-law, and Tian Shosho is my wife. So what if they've gone overboard with you? Xiao Chen waved his hand impatiently. He glared at Song Qingshu and said, are you here to apologize or not? If you are, finish what you have to say and leave. Don't disturb their reunion. Xiao Chen really despised Song Qingshu's behavior. The guy was simply an idiot. He thought that he was powerful and had a high status, and he was so arrogant that he did not know where he got his pride from. In fact, he was nothing but a pretentious prick. Xiao Chen. Don't think that you can be so arrogant and condescending just because you have Open Heaven sect as your support. Our cultivation sects are not necessarily afraid of you. Song Qingshu was so angry that she didn't have time to apologize and immediately retorted. Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered with him anymore. Song Qingshu's vocabulary was really poor. He kept repeating the same words over and over again. Xiao Chen was tired of listening to him. Perhaps Song Qingshu still felt angry, so she turned to Song Huawu and advised, Sister, you've seen Xiao Chen's true colors. I advise you to stop following this guy. He's such a playboy, and he'll hurt you sooner or later. How many times have I told you, I'm not your sister? Song Huawu's face darkened. She said coldly, I have nothing to do with the Song family of your immortal cultivation sect. Please think carefully before you speak in the future. Song Huawu did not have a good impression of Song Qingshu to begin with, and she was even more disgusted with the Song family, who had separated her parents. She did not expect that this fellow would be so ungrateful as to keep instigating the relationship between her and Xiao Chen. Song Huawu could not stand it anymore. Huawu, don't be so childish. Why don't we go back and talk about it? I'm worried about you staying in this place. If those people from the ghost cultivation sect come looking for trouble with Xiao Chen, he definitely won't be able to protect you. At that time, if you get implicated, how am I going to explain it to your father? Song Qingshu continued to earnestly persuade her. You don't have to worry about that. Since Huawu is my wife, I naturally have the ability to protect her. Xiao Qin was speechless at Song Qingshu, who was acting like a monk. He directly asked him to leave and said, there's no need to trouble you with other things. Since you don't plan to apologize, then goodbye. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Qin took a step forward. He first released a trace of mental power to the door of the room, then raised his hand and waved at Song Qingshu. F***CK. You actually dare to attack me. Song Qingshu couldn't help but be shocked when he saw Xiao Qin's posture. However, before he could finish speaking, he saw that Xiao Qin had already pushed his palm at him through the air. Song Qingshu subconsciously wanted to defend, but before he could circulate his mental cultivation method, the door behind him suddenly opened by itself. Then, his entire body was pushed back by a strong force. Ah! Song Qingshu was caught off guard and directly flew out of the door. However, he didn't fall to the ground. Instead, he landed very smoothly on the ground. Before he could react, the door in front of him closed again with a bang. Seeing this scene, how could Song Qingshu not know that it was Xiao Qin's doing? He immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted at the closed door, Xiao Qin. You're too arrogant. It's fine if you only offend me now, but if you offend the ghost cultivation sect because of your bad temper, then you'll suffer. I tried to persuade you with kind words, but you didn't listen. Then, you'd better behave yourself. With that, Song Qingshu snorted coldly. She tossed aside the matter of apologizing that she had thought of before coming. She turned around and left with a flick of her sleeves. She quickly left Xing's courtyard and returned to her room. Xiao Qin, who was in the room, heard Song Qingshu's words and shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Although he did have some misgivings about the ghost cultivation sect, if they really fought, the ghost cultivation sect might not be able to take advantage of him. Besides, apart from Shishan Giant Bull that he needed to be careful about, the rest of the people from the ghost cultivation sect should just be small fries. They were nothing to be afraid of. When the time came, he only needed to act according to the circumstances. Cousin-in-law, is that Song something love letter an idiot? He said that he would come to apologize, but he was so arrogant as if someone owed him 8 million yuan. How ridiculous. Jean Bebe curled her lips at the door and snorted. Yes, Sister Sour Sour also thinks that he is not a good person. He doesn't even want to prepare a banquet, and he still wants to apologize. Sister Sour Sour doesn't even have a chance to have a feast. Tian Sour Sour also nodded in agreement and added angrily, Husband Xiao Qin, you should have beaten him up just now and let him know what's good for him. At least, you should have beaten him until he is willing to treat you to a meal. Forget it. He doesn't mean any harm. He just likes to pretend to be aloof. Xiao Qin waved his hand and did not take Song Qingshu's angry words to heart. Just now, Xiao Qin had used a trick to send Song Qingshu out of the door unscathed. This was because he had no intention of beating this guy up. Although Song Huawu refused to admit it, in terms of bloodline, this guy was still her older brother, which made him his brother-in-law. He could not go overboard with some things. Chapter 1284. There's no need for you to worry so much. Sensing the heavy atmosphere in the room, Hongzhu could not help but burst into laughter. He waved his hand and casually said, I'm very familiar with Song Qingshu. He's just a tight-lipped person. In reality, he won't do anything out of line. If he really dares to do anything to little brother Xiao Qin, Huawu and I will be the first to not let him off. Cheng Menjing couldn't help but feel a headache when she looked at the two girls who were unwilling to admit defeat. Originally, it was already hard enough for her to deal with Tian Suru. She didn't expect that the little she-devil Jean Bebe would join in the fun as well. Their individual lethality was already great enough. If they joined forces, it would be sufficient to infuriate someone to death. Suru, I don't mean to scold you, but why do you only know how to eat? Cheng Menjing could not help but scold him. Then, she glared at Jean Bebe. Also, Bebe, you are really something. Why are you making such a fuss? On one hand, Hong Yan did not want to go back alone to face Song Qingshu, who was still angry. On the other hand, she felt that neither Hong Zhu nor Xia Fei seemed to be in a relationship with Xiao Chen yet. The place was mostly occupied by Xiao Chen's women. It was indeed inappropriate for them to stay here. Hee hee. As the saying goes, 3 women are enough for a drama. If we do it together, we will be able to kill Song Qingshu with our words alone. Xia Fei also covered her mouth and chuckled. Then, she stretched her arms and winked at Xiao Chen. Our brother Xiao Chen is truly lucky to have so many wives to back him up. Lin Kuer was still standing in the corner of the wall. She did not speak, nor did she express her opinion. However, in her heart, she similarly did not approve of Xiao Chen's actions. She felt that he was sometimes too tyrannical. He could casually kill others, just like a devil. It was too terrifying. How horrifying. At this moment, Hong Yan was still standing in the middle of the hall by herself. She looked at Cheng Menjing and the other girls in shock, her heart greatly shaken. After taking a few steps, Hong Yan suddenly stopped. After hesitating for a moment, she turned around and weakly asked, Sister Xia Fei, do you want to go back with me? I don't think it's appropriate for you to stay here. Brother, I also think what Sister Menjing said makes sense. Song Qingshu seems to be very arrogant. After being hit by you, she definitely won't let it go. Xiao Xiao pulled Xiao Chen's hand, her expression also a little serious. Since Sister Xing is now the sect leader of the Awakening Heaven sect, then let her help us out. It should be very easy to resolve this matter. Jean Bebe pouted her lips and protested, Bebe is fighting for my cousin-in-law. I'm not making a fuss. Tian Suruan also nodded. Linger and Ling Qinxue, who were standing at the side, naturally expressed their agreement. Although they knew that Xiao Chen's cultivation was very high, no matter how high it was, he was still just one person. The immortal cultivation sect was an entire sect, a colossal existence. He might not be able to fight against them, not to mention that there was still the ghost cultivation sect eyeing him covetously from the side. Most importantly, not only were all the girls in the hall beautiful, but they also had their own characteristics. Some were charming, some were shy, some were lively, and some were steady. Most importantly, they got along very well. What the hell was going on? Were they all poisoned by Xiao Chen? Don't be silly. Since you're Xiao Chen's woman, what's the difference between your business and mine? Why are you so clear about it? Xiao Chen did not mind that other people were present. He took Song Huawu into his arms and comforted her softly. An hour ago, Xiao Chen was not clear about the relationship between Song Huawu and the Song family of the Immortal Cultivation sect. However, after Song Huawu and the other girls' narration and explanation, he more or less understood it. Therefore, he showed mercy to Song Qingshu. Xia Fei was originally much more mature than the girls in the room. She stretched her body, revealing the seductive charm of a mature and domineering woman. Her perfect curves immediately attracted the gazes of many people, making their hearts sway. Many girls unconsciously revealed envious gazes. Ah. Oh. Okay, I understand. Hong Yan was slightly stunned. She nodded subconsciously and agreed. Then, she turned around and was about to leave. When Xiao Xiao first entered the martial arts world to look for Xiao Chen, she had stayed with the Hong family for a period of time. Therefore, she had a good understanding of the strength of the Immortal Cultivation sect. Therefore, she did not want Xiao Chen to get into any trouble because of this. You don't need to worry about my affairs. Hong Zhu frowned. His tone was not very kind. If you want to leave, then leave. Don't dawdle. I still have a lot to talk about with my little brother Xiao Chen. Hong Zhu was really speechless at his sister. He thought, this little girl is too bad at talking. What do you mean by it has nothing to do with me? Can't you see that I am also a little interested in Xiao Chen? If I don't seize this opportunity to communicate with him, I won't even get a share of the soup. Hong Yan was really too surprised. Originally, she thought that Xiao Chen only had a few girlfriends from the Hong family. She thought that he must have spent a lot of effort to deceive them. She did not expect that he would actually have so many more girls in his pocket. It was simply too inconceivable. Hong Yan felt that she could not see through this fellow Xiao Chen anymore. If he really was a lecher, a pervert, and a hooligan, how could there be so many women who were dead set on him? Cheng Menjing shook her head. She was too lazy to educate those two who did not listen. Instead, she turned her head and said to Xiao Chen with a trace of worry, "Xiao Chen, your actions just now were a little too unfriendly. Why don't you let Xing Gongzi communicate with the people of the immortal cultivation sect? If the relationship becomes too rigid, it will not be good if there is a dispute between the two sides in the future." Xiao Chen, I am really sorry. Originally, this matter should have been settled by me. In the end, I did not expect that you would still be involved. Song Huawu was hiding something in her heart, so she did not notice Xia Fei's actions. Instead, she bit her lower lip and apologized guiltily. Hee, Sister Hong Yan, I think you shouldn't leave. Why don't you stay and accompany us? Xia Fei directly went forward and hugged Hong Yan's small waist. She smiled with a pair of charming willow-shaped eyes and said, "Actually, Xiao Chen is also very good to you. Didn't he help you break through to the venerable realm before? Anyway, you have seen what you should see. Everyone is even. No one suffered a loss, right?" Before Hong Yan could think further, Xiao Chen comforted Song Huawu's emotions. He turned his head and lightly said to her, "Hong Yan, there is nothing else for you to do here. You can go back first. But I have to trouble you with one thing. Please help me tell Song Qingshu that this time, I will not be calculative with him for Huawu's sake. I hope he knows what is good for him and will not do anything stupid again." Chapter 1285. This. Xia Fei's words made Hong Yan involuntarily recall the scene of her and Xiao Chen's dual cultivation in the venerable secret realm. Her cheeks instantly flushed red, and she hastily broke free from Xia Fei's demonic clutches. She hastily retreated while waving her hands, saying, "No. No need, I'll leave first." "You, don't stay too late." After stammering, Hong Yan immediately turned around, pushed open the door, and ran out as if she was fleeing for her life. When the Awakening Heaven sect disciples and guards saw Hong Yan running out of little girl Xing's room in a panic with a flushed face, they didn't know what was going on as they watched her madly run away. In their hearts, they were a little apprehensive, thinking that Hong Yan had been criticized by sect head Xing or had suffered some grievances. "Senior Sister Xiao Fei, don't tease her anymore. She's too thin-skinned. How can she stand listening to such matters between men and women?" Hong Zhu shook his head slightly as he watched Hong Yan's fleeing figure. He sighed in a low voice. They were both children of the Hong family, and twin sisters at that. How could there be such a big difference between them? Sigh, how boring. I thought I could have some fun. Xia Fei spread her hands helplessly and wrinkled her nose playfully. She looked particularly charming. That's right. Even little Sister Ku has the courage to stand here. This little girl is too timid. Tang Tang smiled and rubbed Kerlin's head as she teased. "Ah. I didn't. Kerlin immediately blushed. She wanted to explain but didn't know what to say. When she saw everyone's eyes focused on her, she became even more flustered and sweated. "All right, stop teasing our little sister." Xia Fei helped Kerlin to smooth things over. She had just remembered something important, so she put away her smile and said to Xiao Chen, "By the way, little brother Xiao Chen, I forgot to mention that Song Qingshu didn't come looking for you just to apologize. I'm guessing he has other plans. He just ran away because he was angered by you, so he didn't have the time to say it." Xia Fei didn't say the last half of the sentence out loud. Oh. Looks like this brat really doesn't learn from his mistakes. Could it be that he still wants to use the open heaven gate to do whatever he wants? Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows. He did not show any panic and instead asked with interest. If Song Qingshu really intended to harm Qi Tianmen, then Xiao Chen naturally would not sit idly by. Even if he did not cripple this kid, he would let him taste some pain. Did he really think that he could be lawless just because he was his brother-in-law? Actually, he's not targeting open heaven gate. He's just interested in you. Hongzhu sized up Xiao Chen and said with a mischievous smile. Holy sh*t. He couldn't have fallen for me, right? Hurry up and tell him that I'm straight, and I'm determined not to date him. Xiao Chen felt very uncomfortable under Hongzhu's stare. He hurriedly covered his vital parts and put on a righteous expression. Ha ha ha, what nonsense are you thinking? Hongzhu suddenly laughed so hard that he couldn't catch his breath. After a while, he calmed down and explained while suppressing his laughter, he really has taken a fancy to you, but unfortunately, it's not your jade body that he's interested in, but your ability to easily help cultivators break through to the venerable realm. Oh, so that's how it is. Really, you scared this baby to death. Xiao Chen patted his chest, causing the group of girls to convulse with laughter. Xiao Chen didn't laugh. Instead, he scratched his chin and asked, what does he want to do with this ability? Does he want me to help your cultivation sect as a labor force? Oh, little brother Xiao Chen is really smart. Hongzhu snapped his fingers, looked at Xiao Chen with a grin, and said, he wants to use this point to make you work for the cultivation sects. Xiao Chen twitched his lips and said slowly, shaking his head, then you go and tell him to give up the idea as soon as possible. If the cultivation sects can afford my appearance fee, I can occasionally make a guest appearance and help them out in passing. As for making young Master Xiao lose his freedom for the sake of their long-term meal ticket, that's absolutely impossible. When Qing Menjing and Shen Jingxian heard Xiao Chen's words, they looked at each other tacitly and put on a smile. Jean Bebe was laughing so hard that her eyebrows could not even be seen. She was wearing an expression that said, I knew that my cousin-in-law would say that. They both recalled the story of when Xiao Chen played tricks on Chen Jinpeng and Chao Yuliang in Songning City. At that time, he pretended to be weak and asked for a sky-high appearance fee. Not only did he take their appearance fee, he even played a trick on them. At that time, they thought that Xiao Chen was willing to sacrifice his life for money. Hongzhu rolled his eyes at Xiao Chen helplessly and said grumpily, you want to be his long-term meal ticket? After what happened just now, I bet he can't wait to beat you up. How could he come to you for a breakthrough? Knock, knock, knock. Before Xiao Chen could say anything, a light knock came from the door again. The people who were whispering to each other quietened down. Xiao Chen was still wondering why there were so many people looking for Miss Xing today when a familiar voice came from outside the door. Leader Xing, is it convenient for you now? I have a very important matter that I need to report to you. Elder Son carefully shouted from outside the door. Sure, come in. Miss Xing replied. She felt a little confused. Why did Elder Son come here? The following worship ceremony in the cultivation world didn't have much to do with him. What important matter could he have? Reporting. Elder Son walked in with large strides. He only said one word before he went silent. It was as if he was a duck that had been grabbed by the neck. Elder Son was already stunned by the lineup of different beauties in the room. Apart from Xiao Chen, all the other beauties were sitting, standing, or leaning against the wall. He felt that his eyes weren't enough to take in all of them. After sweeping his eyes over all the women, he still felt a little unsatisfied. One had to know that he had lived for more than half his life and had seen many strange people and strange things. However, he had never seen so many beautiful girls. Even though Elder Son wasn't a particularly lecherous person, at this moment, he felt a kind of ecstasy. He didn't think that he would be able to feast his eyes today at such an old age. He truly felt that his life was worth it. Surnamed Son, have you seen enough? What are you here for? Do you have something to say or not? If you have something to say, then hurry up and say it. If not, then scram. Seeing elder son's lecherous look and not saying anything for a long time, Xiao Chen's face couldn't help but sink as he scolded. Chapter 1286. Xiao Chen purposely added a trace of yuan qi into his voice. The bystanders didn't feel anything strange, but when it reached elder son's ears, it was like a huge bell ringing, shaking his soul. Cough, cough. Elder son woke up from his stupor and hurriedly pretended to cough a few times. Then, he put on a serious expression and weakly said, "That. Hero Xiao, I do have something I need to discuss with sect leader Xing, but I wonder if I can speak with sect leader Xing alone?" "Oh, of course, not a problem." Xiao Chen calmly nodded his head, then walked over and patted elder son's shoulder. He said in a neutral tone, "How about this? I'll twist off your head right now, then throw your body out to feed the dogs. Since your head is left, you can talk to sect leader Xing however you want. What do you think?" "Pay. So disgusting." Little girl Xing glared at Xiao Chen and spat in dissatisfaction. Qing Menjing and the other girls couldn't help but reveal looks of disgust. Xiao Chen really didn't know how to control his mouth. How could he dare to say anything? There were so many girls here, didn't he know how to consider the feelings of others? Actually, all the girls knew that Xiao Chen was doing this for little girl Xing's own good. He didn't want elder son to do anything unfavorable to little girl Xing when they were alone. However, the way he spoke was questionable. Don't. Hero Xiao, please be lenient. I indeed have something important to discuss with sect leader Xing." The scene that Xiao Chen described was too shocking. Elder son was so scared that he almost cried and hurriedly begged. "What is it? Say it now. There are no outsiders here, there's nothing we can't let them know." Little girl Xing was afraid that Xiao Chen would say something more disgusting and hurriedly interjected. Elder son's face was sullen as he explained word by word. Back then, sect leader Qi Tian, the previous sect leader, was afraid that there would be traitors in our sect, so he specially adopted a measure. He ordered people to secretly install tracking devices on the upper echelons and disciples who were carrying out missions. "What did you say?" Xiao Chen's body shook as he blurted out. He was just joking before, but now he really had the urge to twist elder son's head and kick it like a ball. Among them, Sect Master Xing is also one of the targets. Elder son could naturally feel Xiao Chen's killing intent. He braced himself and continued, So I came here this time to report this matter, and ask Sect Master Xing to quickly think of a way to remove the tracking device. Otherwise, it is very possible that your life will be in danger." Ever since little chick Xing had officially become the sect master, elder son had been considering whether he should reveal this matter or not. He also knew that now that Situ Qitian was no longer around, if he revealed this matter, he would definitely bear the brunt of Xiao Chen's wrath. Elder son was afraid that Xiao Chen, who was unable to restrain his anger, would kill him if he told the truth. However, if he did not tell the truth, Xiao Chen might find out sooner or later. Even if he didn't find out, if something really happened to sect leader Xing, he wouldn't just have to bear the brunt of Xiao Chen's anger. After a few sleepless nights and hesitating for a long time, elder son finally made up his mind to tell the truth and report this matter to sect leader Xing. After all, paper could not hold fire. As the sect leader of Qi Tian's sect, Xing Gongzi would find out about this sooner or later. He might as well tell the truth. Even if he didn't end up well, he could at least avoid any big trouble in the future. It can't be. There's a tracking device on my body? How is that possible? I've never found it before. Little girl Xing was completely confused and asked in astonishment. Because she often had to dress up as a man, little girl Xing was afraid that she would make a mistake and expose herself in front of others. Thus, she would usually check her clothes very carefully, not letting go of even the smallest details. However, she had never found anything out of the ordinary. But when she heard elder son's words, little girl Xing still subconsciously checked every button on her clothes. Then, she touched her hair. She had seen in the movies that listening devices and tracking devices were usually hidden in places like this. But after searching all around, little girl Xing still couldn't find anything. Her suspicion grew even stronger. This sect leader Xing, the tracking device was actually installed in your body. That's why you couldn't find it. Elder son wiped the non-existent sweat off his forehead and explained with difficulty. You said there's a tracking device? Then where is the terminal of the signal? Who is controlling it right now? Hongzhu's expression also changed as he asked a series of questions. The Hongning group under Hongzhu's command had many means, so she also vaguely knew about the existence of this kind of tracking device. Moreover, the tracking device might also carry some other, dangerous, things that could control or even harm the person being tracked. She couldn't help but worry for little girl Xing. Elder son trembled as he took out his cell phone from his bosom and carefully opened a certain software. He pointed at the screen and explained, this software is used to control the tracking device. Aside from being able to pinpoint the location of the person being implanted, it can also control the thoughts of the person being implanted. If that person doesn't obey orders, it can also. Elder son said, can also, for a long time, but in the end, he didn't dare to continue speaking. However, Xiaochen could see some clues from the panic and fear in elder son's eyes. Coupled with Hongzhu's nervous attitude just now, he could roughly guess what was going on. From this, it could be seen that Situ Qitian's intentions were extremely sinister. Most likely, in order to prevent the upper echelons from rebelling, he had installed some other terrifying mechanism in the tracking device that could directly kill the person who rebelled, or even make them wish they were dead. Give me your cell phone, now, immediately. Xiaochen could no longer suppress his anger and fiercely roared at Elder Sunday. Although Xiaochen was a profound ascension stage cultivator who had already entered the realm of returning to one's true self, he could no longer suppress the suffocating pressure that he released in his rage. The killing intent was even more ferocious and terrifying than the one he had released just now, and it completely enveloped Elder Sunday. Elder Sun felt as if he was being stared at by a ferocious beast from ancient times. All the words he wanted to say were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say anything. His legs were shaking incessantly as if they were a pendulum. He didn't dare to think too much and hurriedly handed over the cell phone with trembling hands. He was afraid that if he was even a beat slower, he would be killed by Xiaochen with a single slap. Xiaochen took the cell phone and looked at the software that controlled the tracking device. With a slight squeeze of his palm, the cell phone was directly crushed into pieces. Then, he fiercely threw it to the ground and smashed it to pieces. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.